The crowd roared. The lights blazed yet when Eminem walked off stage. The door opened only to the same stage again. The lights above him were knives of white heat. The roar of the crowd was a storm that filled every bone in his body. Marshall held the mic steady, sweat dripping from his brow, hoodie clinging to his back, his voice tearing through the speakers like thunder over steel dot. This was home. Or at least, it used to be. He spat the last verse with every ounce of fire left in him, let the beat crash to silence, and stood there in the flood of applause. Dietra screamed his name the way it always had, like they needed him, like he was theirs. The sound wrapped around him, suffocating and holy all at once. He gave the quick nod, the small bow, the ritual goodbye. His body ached for the dark safety of the wings. He turned, walked off stage, and felt the relief slide into his shoulders as he reached the curtain. The backstage corridor was narrow, painted black, lined with gaffer tape and flight cases. He knew the routine: towel water, manager's handshake, a couple of tired laughs before the van. He pushed the door open at the end of the hallway, and the sound hit him like a wall. The roar, the lights, the heat. He stumbled forward, blinded. He was back on stage, same spot, same crowd, same flood of noise. Marshall froze, mic still in his hand, though he didn't remember holding it. He blinked hard, scanning the stadium. The fans screamed like nothing had broken rhythm. Some waved posters, some threw hands in the air. The sea of faces was identical to what he'd seen seconds earlier, like a picture replaying itself. His throat tightened. "What the?" The monitors boomed. His own voice thundered back at him, the same outro, word for word, syllable for syllable. A perfect playback of what he'd just finished. The crowd erupted again, as if they hadn't already. He turned, heart hammering, and made for the wings again. The curtain brushed his shoulder the same way. The corridor stretched out in the same black angles. He shoved through the same exit door, and the stage swallowed him again. The roar, the lights, the heat. He dropped the mic. It clattered loud on the floor, but the speakers didn't carry it. The sound vanished, eaten by the repetition. The crowd cheered as if the drop had been part of the act. Marshall's chest heaved. He spun, shoving into the curtain once more, faster, rougher. The door slammed behind him. He burst through, and there it was. The stage, the same scream, the same lights. Sweat burned down his temples. His hands trembled. He grabbed the mic off the floor. It was already back in its stand, waiting for him. "No," he muttered. "No, this ain't right. This ain't real." The crowd chanted his name in perfect rhythm. Eminem, M-I-N-E-M. He backed toward the edge of the platform, eyes darting. He expected to see the security pit, the barricades, the long stretch of guards in black tees. Instead, the crowd pressed right up to the lip of the stage. No space, no barrier. Their faces tilted up toward him, hundreds of them, mouths wide, screaming, but none of them blinked. His stomach lurched. He stumbled back. He turned again, desperate, sprinted for the curtain. The hallway, the door, the handle. He yanked it open, the stage, the roar. The heat, it hit him harder every time, louder, brighter, hotter. Marshall dropped to his knees, palms pressed to his ears. The chant rolled on, perfectly timed, a machine of devotion. He screamed, but his voice was lost in the noise. Then, for the first time, the crowd fell silent. A silence so sharp it stung. Marshall lifted his head, panting. The entire arena stared at him, unmoving. Thousands of eyes fixed on his body, holding him in place. And then, from the back row, a single voice called out. Not a cheer, not a chant, his own voice. Again, the crowd roared back to life, deafening, and Marshall felt the ground tilt beneath him. The mic in his hand vibrated like it was alive. The song began again, first beat, first bar, as if the show had never started, and the door behind him waited, promising only one more stage. Marshall paced the stage, sweat stinging his eyes, the mic trembling in his grip. The bass line thumped into motion again. Same tempo, same intro, same first verse cue. He didn't rap. He couldn't. His lips pressed tight, but the words still poured from the speaker's voice. Spitting bars he hadn't opened his mouth to deliver. The crowd screamed approval, chanting every syllable in unison. Their mouths moved, their throats strained, but something was wrong. The sound wasn't coming from them. It came from everywhere at once, like the arena itself had memorized him. No, Marshall muttered, backing toward the curtain again. You don't get to own me. He shoved through the wings, sprinted down the hall, slammed the door open. The stage, the roar, the heat. This time, he didn't hesitate. He threw the mic into the audience. It spun end over end, a flash of silver, and landed in the hands of a boy in the front row. The boy lifted it, grinned wide. But instead of holding it up, he crushed it in his fists. The metal folded like paper. The crowd roared louder. Marshall stumbled back. You ain't real, he whispered. The chant shifted. You ain't real. You ain't real. You ain't real. His pulse hammered against his ribs. He spun, searching for another exit. To the side of the stage, a narrow stairwell led down into the dark. He took it 2 steps at a time, lungs burning, until he hit another door. He yanked it open, the stage. The roar, the heat. His breath tore out of him in ragged gasps. His knees buckled. He slammed the door shut, leaned his forehead against the cool steel, willing it to change. When he turned back, the crowd had grown. Rows upon rows of faces climbed the arena, higher than he'd ever played, stacked into the rafters like an infinite ocean of bodies. No stadium could hold this many, yet they were all here, chanting, their mouths wide, and none of them blinked. Marshall's gut twisted. He pressed his palms to his ears. The chant still burrowed through. Suddenly, the crowd fell dead silent again. He froze. His heartbeat thundered loud in the vacuum. Then, in one voice, the entire arena spoke. Not a chant, not a screamer sentence. There is no backstage. The floodlights above flared hotter, white fire burning into his eyes. The air tasted of iron. The speakers crackled. His own voice boomed out again, this time, not rapping, not rhyming. Run all you want, you only come back to me. Marshall staggered, sweat dripping, vision blurring. He clutched the mic stand for balance, but it dissolved in his grip, melted into smoke that curled upward, vanishing in the lights. The crowd erupted again. The song restarted. He realized then it wasn't a concert. It wasn't even a show. It was a loop, and the loop had no intention of ending. Marshall froze in the middle of the stage, breath ragged, eyes burning from the floodlights. The noise of the audience rolled over him in crashing waves, but there was a thread in it, something sharp and strange. He blinked through the sweat and stared closer, and that's when it hit him. The faces weren't. Strangers, every single person in the arena, the front row. The nosebleeds, the people waving lighters and phones, they were all him. Not lookalikes, not masks. Him. Thousands of marshals screamed his name. Every version of himself he had ever been or could ever be in the front row. The scrawny teenager in a hoodie too big for his shoulders, eyes blazing with hunger. Beside him, the bleach blonde Slim Shady, mouth twisted into a grin sharp enough to cut. A few rows back, the rehab patient, pale and hollow-eyed, hospital band dangling on his wrist. Further up, an older marshal, face heavier, streaks of grey in his beard, eyes tired but defiant. Everywhere he looked, every seat, every tier, every corner of the arena, his own face stared back. Some chanted, some laughed, some just opened their mouths to widen voiceless screams. The chant began again, but now it was unmistakable. Encore. 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 Marshall staggered backward, nearly tripping over the mic stand. His own voice came back at him in a tidal wave, multiplied thousands of times, overlapping in different tones, different ages, different moods. No. His throat cracked, words dry. Nah, this ain't me. This ain't me. The crowd thundered back in perfect unison. It's all you. He pressed his palms to his ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't just external, it lived inside his skull, rattling his teeth, vibrating in his bones. He stumbled to his knees, head down, hoodie clinging to his sweat-soaked back. The jumbotron above the stage flickered on. Marshall looked up through the blur of sweat. His face filled the screen, but not the one he wore right now. The jumbotron glitched, flipping every few seconds through different versions of himself. The hungry battle rapper with a shaved head and fury in his eyes. Slim, Shady sneering with bleach blonde hair. The exhausted man in a hoodie who'd stared into interview cameras. The addict with trembling hands. The father clutching a child close. The legend with stadium lights burning behind him. Each face stared directly at him, their eyes following his every flinch. Then, as the crowd fell silent, the jumbotron mouth opened, his own voice booming, monstrous. Layered with distortion, shook the arena. You don't escape a stage, you built yourself. The floodlights flared, white fire that burned his vision to static. He dropped the mic, shielding his eyes. The crowd didn't move, didn't blink. Their mouths all opened wide in perfect unison, but no sound came out. The silence was worse than the roar. Marshall's chest tightened as he tried to read their lips. Every mouth shaped the same phrase. Say the verse. Break the loop. He bent down, snatched the mic from the floor. It buzzed in his grip, hot, alive, vibrating with static. The speakers hissed, teasing the intro beat like a predator circling its prey. His gut twisted. He knew the truth before he admitted it. If he spit the verse, the loop would change, but maybe not end. Maybe it would tighten around him like a noose. Then another voice slid through the noise, not from the speakers, not from the crowd, but from inside his head. His own voice, darker, lower, like a version of himself he'd buried long ago. Careful. If you rap it, you don't own it anymore. Marshall's knees wobbled. He stared at the microphone glowing faintly in his grip. Stared at the ocean of his own faces chanting without sound. Stared at the endless loop of doors that only opened to more stage. And for the first time in his life, he didn't know whether rapping would save him or bury him alive. The mic shook in Marshall's hand, buzzing like it had a heartbeat of its own. His chest heaved as the floodlights bore down hotter, searing his skin, baking the sweat into salt. The crowd of endless marshals waited, their mouths stretched into silent demands. Say the verse. Break the loop. He swallowed hard. His lips trembled. All his life, the answer had been the same. When the beat drops, you spit. It didn't matter the crowd, the place, the time. But this crowd wasn't real. Or worse, it was too real. He lifted the mic. The beat crackled into life. The same intro looped again, like a mocking drum roll. His voice thundered through the speakers before he even spoke, already rapping the first bar. No, his voice came out raw, defiant. He cut himself off. The crowd froze, motionless. The entire arena leaned forward, thousands of his own faces narrowing their eyes. The jumbotron above flickered, glitching through images of himself. Static chewing at the edges. Marshall gritted his teeth and pushed back, forcing words through the static. Listen, this ain't your verse. This stage ain't my curse. You can loop me forever, but I spit unrehearsed. The sound warped through the speakers, distorted, fighting against the loop. The arena shook, floodlights stuttering, the chant breaking into fragmented echoes. The crowd screamed not in unison this time, but fractured, each version of him shouting something different. The addict howled in pain. Slim Shady laughed, manic. The weary man in the hoodie begged under his breath. All of them bled into chaos. Marshall kept going, voice ripping raw from his throat. You want encore? You want more? Then choke on the silence you built before. The mic flared white-hot in his grip. Pain shot up his arm, but he refused to drop it. Sparks cracked from the speakers. The jumbotron fractured, his faces splintering into a mosaic of eyes and mouths that didn't line up. The arena tilted. Rows of seats buckled, folding inward like a collapsing jaw. The crowd's bodies twisted into smoke, their screams bleeding into static. Marshall stumbled to his knees, still clutching the mic, voice cracking into a final scream. This is my verse, and it ends here. The floodlights exploded. Darkness swallowed the stage. The roar died, for the first time since it began. Silence fell. Marshall lay on the stage, chest heaving, hands blistered around the mic. The crowd was gone. The arena was empty. Just rows of dark seats, lifeless and still. The jumbotron sparked one last time, flickering pale. A single line of text scrawled across the broken screen. Loop interrupted. But interruption is not escape. The screen went black. Marshall stared at the void, where the audience had been, his throat raw, his soul rattling in his chest. He had broken the verse, but he hadn't ended the song. Marshall stumbled through the curtain, lungs on fire, skin blistered where the mic had seared his palm. His shoes scraped the corridor floor, body begging for collapse. This time the hallway felt longer, darker. The air was thick with dust, no gaffer tape, no crew gear, just a single steel door at the end. He shoved it open with both hands. Cold air hit his face. He staggered out into the Detroit night, snowflakes cutting the air like ash. His knees buckled as he dropped to the pavement, chest heaving. For the first time in what felt like hours, the roar was gone. No crowd, no beat, no lights. Just silence, broken only by his ragged breaths. He lay there, staring up at the streetlight buzzing overhead, its glow weak against the dark sky. His hand unclenched, mic slipping from his grip. The steel burnt was still etched into his skin, a brand he'd never lose. He closed his eyes, whispering, "It's done." "It's over." Then he heard it. A clap. Just one. His eyes snapped open. Across the street, in the shadows between two buildings, a figure stood. Hoodie up, head tilted, a mic in its hand. Marshall squinted, heart thundering. The figure stepped forward into the light. It was him, not just a reflection. Not just a reflection. Another Marshall, younger, sharper, with bleached hair and a smirk carved into his face. Behind him, the shadows shifted. More figures emerged. Dozens, hundreds, all Marshall, all carrying my cess. And then he heard it. The roar, not from a stadium, not from speakers, from everywhere. The city itself screamed, windows trembling, lights flickering. He turned. The steel door behind him glowed faintly red. Across its surface, words etched themselves like fire. The stage never ends. Marshall's legs gave out. The figures stepped closer, voices layering, building into a chant that shook the snow from the rooftops. Encore, encore, encore. He realized then he hadn't escaped the stage. He'd only let it out. The night pressed tighter. The voices climbed higher. And the city of Detroit became his audience, chanting for a song that would never stop.